Hello folks, in this video we will learn about Express.js by building the backend of a to-do list application. So I have already built a to-do list in Vanilla.js as well as in React.js, so you can definitely check out these videos. However, in this video we will be only building the backend. So what is Express.js? Express.js is a JavaScript backend web framework using which we can build APIs easily. So let's see how we can do it. So as you can see, I am in my to-do list backend folder. And here I will start a project by writing npm init. It will take some time and then it will ask me some questions. So it is asking what is the package name. Let's keep it backend. Then you can ignore these things. The entry point will be index.js file and it is asking for the author name. I will give my name and yeah, that's it. So we have one package.json file and here we have all this information. So now I will install some dependencies. So I will install npm express because that is the framework we are using. So right now I will show you the Express.js documentation while it is installing. So this is the Express.js documentation, expressjs.com. You can also check it out. And this is the starter code, helloworld.html. So this is the starter code. So first of all, we are importing Express and we have to import Express and then we will build one app and then we will give a port and the port will be listening on like the app will run on this 3001. And then we will create some route. So this is the default route which is giving hello world. So now we will write this code ourselves and see how Express is working. And then I will show you what is Postman. So Postman is a product using which you can build your APIs and also test it. So you can sign up here and also download it because we will be needing this a lot for testing APIs. So let me just go back to my VS Code and let's see if it is installed. Yeah, it's installed. So now I will create one index.html file, index.js file because that is the starting point, and here I will start writing my code. So first of all, as we have seen, we have to import Express. So I will write const express equals to require Express. So we got Express and then we have to build our app. So I will write const app equals to Express and then we have to make one port and the app will be listening on that port. So let me make port as 3000. Let's make it 3000 and here I will give my port and then I will write one console log over here and that is app is listening in port. Actually we had to use backticks for this one. We can also write like this and then port over here. And now how we can run this thing. So we can simply write node and then index.js and we can see that our app has started. So now we can go back to my browser and let me write localhost 3000 over here. And what do we get? We get cannot get, and that is because although we have made our server, we have not yet created any routes. So we can create routes like this app.get and this is a base URL, that is my localhost 3000, and here I will have one function with 3 arguments and those are request, response and next. Now I can write anything I want, but this rec, res and next is the convention. And let me create one arrow function over here and here what I'll write is res.send and this is the message I want to send in my like base URL. And let's write to-do list homepage. So now when we go back to my browser and refresh this page, what do we see? Okay, it's still showing cannot get, and the reason is that this app is still running with the old code and we can actually resolve this very simply, and that is by installing something called nodemon as a dev dependency. So dev dependency means that we will only use this in development, not in production. So I can simply write npm -d nodemon and then I can click on enter. So you can also do this. Now I have already installed these things, so I will simply now write nodemon and then index.js. And so what nodemon will do is any change we make in our code, it will automatically refresh. So let's say I just add this semicolon once again, and as you can see the app is refreshed. So this is very handy in terms of speed. So now let me go back to my server and refresh the page and you can see to-do list homepage. So yeah, that's it. And now also instead of this we can also pass HTML over here. So I can simply write over here h1 Todo List homepage, and then same thing. And now when I go back and refresh, I see To Do List homepage in h1. So now let's create some more routes. So this is a To Do List application, so I will build one const to dos. This will be one array with few objects. So let's create the first, let's give the first one the id of 1, and description, let's write a to do, write Python code, and let's also give one completed, checkbox kind of thing, completed, and let's give this as false because we're not writing Python. And then I will create another object, id of 2, and description, let's give write JavaScript code, and we are writing JavaScript, so we will do completed as true. So we have our to-dos. So now let's create another route called app.get, and let's make this route as to-dos. And again we will have our request, response, and next. Now you can ignore the next because generally we don't use next over here. This is something we use in middlewares. We will check that later. And also we generally don't use res.send. So instead we generally use res.json. So in the res.json I want to send my to-dos over here. So whenever I'm going to this to-dos URL, I expect to see my to-dos array. So let's see if we get that or not. So as you can see, I have my to-dos array. So now we will start using Postman instead of like checking in the browser, because when we are checking in the browser, all of this is GET request. So when we are making HTTP requests, we must know that there are a few kinds of requests. So there are GET request, then POST request, then PUT, delete, also patch, and maybe a few others. But for the to-do list, we only need the first 4. So any requests we make from this point onwards, we will make this in our Postman. So here I am in Postman. This is the interface, and on the left hand side we will have some collections where we will create some requests, and on the right hand side we will see what is happening with our request. So I have already created one to-do list collection with all the requests we will make, one home page, then get to dos and everything. But here we will make it from scratch to learn. So first of all, I'll create one collection. I can click on this plus icon, and one new collection has been created. Let's name it as to do list 2, and in this collection let me create few requests. So we can click on these 3 dots over here in the to do list 2, and we can add a request, and let's name this request as to do. Let's name this simply as homepage. And what is the URL of the homepage? We can write over here, and that is localhost 3000. Yeah, and when we click on send, we are getting whatever our response is, and that is under h1 to-do list homepage. And we can also click on the preview to see how it actually looks like, but we will only deal with this one because when we are building APIs, we generally don't need our h1 tags and HTML. So actually let's remove the h1 for simplicity, and let's build some other routes that we will be using. So we already have one route, and that is to-dos, which is giving us the to-dos. So let me just create another request and add request, and let's name this one as get to-dos, and let's give the URL over here, and that is to-dos. Now when we click on send, or you can also click on enter, as you can see I have 2 of my to-dos. So now let's assume we want to get one specific to-do with the ID. So how can we get that? So let's make another request, and let's name this one as get to do. And right now we have ID 1 and 2. Later we will have many, but right now let's simply give this request as localhost 3000 to dos 1. And when we click on send, what do we get? We get an error, and that is because we have not yet created this route. So first of all, let's create a new route, and we will write app.get, and this route will be to-dos. And after to-dos, we simply cannot hard code these values like IDs. We have to have a way of getting any ID we want. So the simple way is we can use one colon and then ID. So what this colon tells the code is that it can expect anything after this. So then we can simply write request and response, request response, and then let's create the arrow function. And so now the question is, how can we get this ID? So let's see how we can get. So first of all, let me simply res.json. Let me just give an empty array over here, and now let me log out this request, and let's see what is in the request. So I have to make one request over here, and it is giving me one empty array, which is fine. But now in the console I have something huge, and this is our request. So this is a huge thing, and we really don't know what is happening over here. So I will simply tell you how to get those things. So whatever we are sending in the URL, those things will come under parameters. So we can write request.params, and let me just give another request. Go back to my console, and as you can see, this time we only have the ID of 1, and we can have many parameters, but in this case we only have 1. So this is our parameter. So to get the ID, we can simply do .id, and now we will only have 1. And now when we click on send, as you can see, we only have 1. So we are getting the ID, specific ID, be it 1, 2, we will get. So now the question is how to get the to do by this ID. So let's write something over here. Let's create one to do, and we really don't know what this thing is right now. So what I'll do is I already have my to do's array. So in my to do's array, what I'll do is I will use one filter method. Now if you don't know what this filter method is, so I have already made one tutorial, so you can check that out. But what this will do is it will allow us to filter our to do based on the ID. So inside this filter method, I will have one individual to do, and I only want the to do that is matching with this request params.id. So I will simply write to-do.id equals to rec params.id. So now I have my correct to do inside this to do, and I will simply do res.json to do. So now when I go back and when I click on send, I have my ID of 1, write Python code to do. I can make it 2, and I have the JavaScript code. So this route is also working. So now we will create few more routes, and we need to make routes for posting to-dos, that is adding new to-dos, and also editing an existing to-do by the ID, and also deleting the to-dos. So we need few more routes, and those are app.post, and let's say we want to post one to-do in the to-dos only. So now one thing you will notice is there is a repetition. So let me just write this thing, and let show you what is the repetition. And we will simply write res.json and empty json. And the repetition is that we already have an app.get to do's, and here we are writing app.post to do's. So that is not an issue because the methods are different. Here it is a get method, here it is a post method. So the Postman or the browser will deal with this thing separately. So now the question is, how can we add the to do's? So one thing we can guess is that we already have an array of to do's. Now adding to do's means adding extra objects in this array. So how can we do that? Let's check it out. And also let's create 2 more dummy routes for my editing, which will be done by put, and editing will also need the ID. So editing will happen like this, and also for one delete, and delete will also happen with IDs. So right now this will give empty arrays, but we will write the code for that. So now how can we add a new to do? So inside my post to do's, what I'll do is I will once again I already have my to do's, right? So what I'll do is I will write to do's.push, and this push method will allow us to push another object inside this to do. And what I want to push, that is a question. What I want to push is something we are sending in the body. So in the Postman, let me just create few more requests. So as of now, I'll create one add request, and let's write this post to do, and this will not be a get, this will be a post, and my URL will be localhost 3000 to do's. And now we will have something over here. What we will have is we have a body, and in this body we can click on raw and we can change this to JSON. Now here we can actually make one to do. We can make given ID, but we will not give IDs, we will generate IDs. So we will give a description, and it should be in double quotes, DESC. Okay, and let's give the description as write C# code, and completed state will be, let's say, false. So this is my body. Now I want to pass this body over here. So how can we do that? And before we do that, we actually have to understand another concept, and that is the concept of middlewares. So what are middlewares? Middlewares are any function or operation that is running when we are sending the request and the time in between we are getting the response. So anything we are writing in Express is actually a middleware. So we are sending the GET request over here and we are getting a response. So any operation that happens in between, that is called a middleware. To give an example, let me just write one small middleware function. So I will write one custom middleware, and this is a function which will also take the request response and also the next that we discussed about. And here I will simply log out something, and I will log out from middleware, and then I will invoke the next method. And to use the middlewares, I have to use app.use, and here I will tell this app that this is a middleware. So now let's say we are sending one request, and that is this to-dos one. Let me send this one, and when I go back to my console, as you can see, from middleware, and then we are getting one. So this custom middleware function, this is running every time, and it will run for all the routes, because this app.use, this is at the top level, and any routes that is below this app.routes, it will run over here. So let's say this is the home route, and let me simply put this route above this one, this custom middleware. And in this case, what will happen is whenever I go to my home page, I'm going to my home page, and that from middleware will not come, but for any other routes it will come. So let's say, let me go back to my get to dos, and when I'm clicking on that, you can see from middleware. So this is how middlewares work. So let me just put it back to where it was. And now this is a custom middleware function, but what we want is we have to use some middleware functions to post our to-dos. And to do that, first of all, let me just open another terminal to install a few more things. And I have to install over here something called body parser. And this body parser is required to read our body section that we are sending in the post. And apart from body parser, we also need something called UUID to create our unique IDs. So right now in the body, we are only passing the description and completed, but the ID is something the code will create on its own. And for that we need the package called UUID. So let me just install these things in another terminal, and let me just come back to my terminal, and let me also remove this middleware because we don't really need this thing. And let's assume our body parser is installed. So what we will write over here is const body parser, and we will simply import this thing, require our body parser. And then in my app.use, I have to import the body parser.json, and let me also import the UUID. This is something we need to generate our IDs. Require UUID. Yeah. So now I will go back to my post to-dos, and here first of all, let me just try to understand how we can get my body. So I will create something called body, and let's simply assume something like, it should be something like request.parents.body, and let me simply log out this body. And now when we are sending a request from here, let's see what we get. We get undefined, and that is because this is actually not part of the parameters. The body is separate one, so I can simply write request.body, and now we will get the correct response. So I have my description write C# code and completed false. So I'm getting my body. So now the question is how to push this body inside this to-dos, like how to create another to-do. So this to-dos array is already there. Now this push thing, what it will do is it will push another object inside this to-dos array. So I can simply write something like this. Here I can make one object, and I will add some ID, and I will create one ID by writing something like this, uuid.v4. So it will create one ID, and then I will put my body, but I cannot put the body like this. I have to like spread out all the things that are inside the body, and then I will have to write my body. So if you want to know how the syntax works, I already have a tutorial on the rest and spread operator. You can check that out. But this is how all the properties and everything in the body will be spread out, and the whole thing will be part of this object. So now if I push this thing will be pushed inside the body, and now when I just send the to-dos over here as response, let's see what do I get. So I expect to get 3 objects right now. So as you can see, first one ID of 1, ID of 2, and also we have the third one, that is write C# code, and we have a very complicated ID over here. Yeah, so actually we can say that our post is now working. So now we are left with only 2 actions to be taken, and that is the put and the delete. So first of all, let's do our put, and then lastly we will do the delete. So for put, what do we want? We have an ID and we want to change something, be it completed, be it description. ID we cannot change, that is fixed, but we have to change the other things with a specific ID. So again, we will take our to do and we will find that which ID is this. So I will do todos.find, and here I have my to do, and I will only take the to do with the ID we are sending in the params dot ID. So now we have the required to do, or we may not have it also. Let's say I give one wrong ID, so we will not have it. So we will check if I have the to do, then what do I want to do? I want the to do dot description to be changed to what? To something I'm sending in my body. So request dot body dot description, this thing will be assigned over here. And I also want my to-dos dot completed to be changed to what? The same thing, request dot body dot completed. And yeah, that's it. And then I will simply send my res.json and the same thing. And if let's say the to-do is not present, we will send something like res.send to do with given ID doesn't exist. So now let's test it out if it works or not. So we will go back to Postman, and now we will create another request, and this will be one put request. So add request, and this will be, let's say, edit to do. Now actually I see there is an issue. Everything is looking get over here, but actually this is not get. This should be like post, put and other things. Maybe after a refresh and stuff, these things will work. So let me just put it put. So deal with it as of now. Maybe in your case this is not working, this is working fine, maybe only I have an issue. Just don't worry about it. So I will change this to JSON once again, and let's say I want to change something. So let me give one description once again, and description is write Java, and what is the completed status? That is, let's say, false. So this is my body, and I have to give an ID over here. So let's give the ID of 1. So right now if I go to get to-dos and send, okay, because I have refreshed, this is coming like this. Let me just post the to-do once again, and now if I go to get to-dos, I will get 3 items. So now first of all, let's try to edit the to-do with the ID of 1 to write Java. It is already write Python, I want to change it to write Java. So now we have already our logic written over here, so let's test it out. So send, and what do we get? Okay, we are getting one empty object because actually we have not changed this thing. Okay, this res.json is still over here, that's why. So let me just change it, this thing, and now I will go back over there and let me send. Okay, it's still showing this thing, and why is that? Let's find out what is the issue. And the issue is here also I'm sending the empty thing. It should be to-dos. Yeah, such a silly mistake. Okay, now let's send, and as you can see the first one is changed to write Java. Let me change the second one also. Let's change this thing to write SQL, and now as you can see the second one is also changed. So our put is also working absolutely fine. So now let me just create another request for the delete, and I will use the delete one, and it will be the same way, localhost 3000 to-dos 1, and we don't need any body or anything because we are simply deleting it. And let's name this thing to, let's name this thing to del to do, not rodo to do. Yeah, now let me go back to my VS Code And what do we want for the delete? So first of all, we want is the index. Okay, let's close the duplicate one. First of all, we want the index. So let's write let index equals to we have our to-dos, and I will use the function called find index. And what is the index we want to find? I have my to-do, and then I want to find the index which is matching with the request.params.id. So now we have the index. Let's just log out the index to see that we are getting the correct index or not. So we have our del, and let me just click on send, and also for the 2, and let's see, we get 0 and 1, which is correct. The first one is 0 and the second one is 1. So we are getting the index. And now how can we delete? So for deleting, we will use one function called splice. So we will use todos.splice, and what this splice thing will do, it will take 2 arguments. First one is the index, so the index over here is index, and second one is from that index how many items I want to delete. So I only want to delete 1, so I will write over here 1, and I will send the to-dos. And now let's see the delete is working or not. So I will go back to my Postman, and let's see how many to-dos we have. We have 2 to-dos, and now we will go to my delete to-do, and let's delete the second one. So let's click on send, and we only have 1. Let me go to my get to-dos, and let's click on send. We only have 1. Let's delete the first one also, and if I go to my get to-dos, we have an empty array. That means our delete is also working fine. Now you can also add the try catch and if else. Let's say if user is giving some ID that is not present over here, you can keep those things, like I'm sure you can do it. So that's it. Like this is the backend of a to-do list application. So that is done. And now we will also build one simple front end to see how from the front end we can actually access the backend. So inside my to-do list, I will create another folder called frontend, and after this we will close this video. So let me create 2 files, index.html, and I'll give the boilerplate, and let me give the title as to-do list front end, and we won't give any styles right now. And let's also attach one script.js file, script.js, and okay, let me create that file, script.js. And this is actually not font end, it should be front end. Okay, so now let me simply write over here something. This is from client. Okay, so now I will open this one. Let me open with live server. And we have it. Now let me simply click on inspect. Let me go to console, and as you can see, this is actually working fine. This is from client. Now we will see how we can actually get the backend data from the front end. So in the front end script.js file, I will write something. Let's write let data or backend data, and here I will write one fetch. And what do I want to fetch? What is the URL? The URL is I will go to my to-dos. I want to get from this URL. So I will write fetch to-dos, and now let me just, now we already know that this backend data is a promise, and to know more about fetch you can check out my fetch video. Now what we can do over here, in this backend data, first of all I can write one then, and I will have one res over here, and here I can simply return res.json, and in one line I don't need to write the return, and then we will have our data, and here I can write my console log of data, and let's see, and also let's add the catch, and we will have an error in case we have. I will write log of, I will simply log out the error, and let's also add one finally, which will be invoked no matter what. So I will write simply let's just go to the next line. This is quite annoying. This is from the finally. Okay, so now let's see what do we have. I will go to my front end, and as you can see I have some error, and what it is saying is access to fetch at this URL from origin, this one, has been blocked by CORS policy. The full form of CORS is cross origin resource sharing. So what it is saying is that we can only fetch data from URLs that is actually matching with the front end. That means the domains are the same. So here in the back end we have localhost something, and in the front end we have 192 something something. So these things are not matching, these URLs are not matching, so it is blocking this thing. Now there is a simple fix for this one, but this is not generally something that is recommended in production. So in development you can simply do it. So you can go back to our backend, and here I will install something called, okay, this is my backend, and here let me simply install something called CORS. And after this thing is installed, I will simply go back to my index.html file, and here I will import CORS, and I will write require CORS, and then I have to use it as a middleware. So I will write app.use and then CORS. That's it. And now I can run nodemon once again, nodemon index.js, and now this issue will not come. So let me go back to my front end and let's see what we are getting right now. So we are getting something. So we are, as you can see, we are getting the whole to-do list from my backend. So we are getting the first one, second one. Now if I do this, change this to to-do list one, let's see what we get. So we only get the Python, and if I, as usual, we can change this to 2 and we will get for the second one, that is our JavaScript. So actually, as you can see in the front end, we can actually get data from the backend using this format. So in the future videos, we can build one full stack to-do list application, because we have already built the front end, and in this video we have built the backend. So in the next video, we will build a full stack to-do list application using Express in the backend and either React or Vanilla.js in the front end. Yeah, so that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.